What is up, everybody? It's your boy T Macaroni, and I am back for another Union Arena video. So the first deck I want to cover on my channel is one that I've been playing non-stop outside of JJK because we don't have that as of yet. 1 month wait, we cry. But this is a deck that I probably will be playing mostly once the game releases in about a week. So I wanted to just cover it and talk about it a little bit and my card choices and why I think the deck is going to be good into the meta. Anyways, the deck I am talking about is Yellow Yhwach, or Yellow Bleach, or Yellow Sternritters, if you would like to call it that. The deck is very good at being aggressive. It is a very aggressive deck. Turns usually go up. Your first couple of turns you are ramping because you do have your boss monsters are pretty high costed, and then you want to be going to face. Usually, very rarely will you ever have to deal with the board, and you have a lot of big targets to remove stuff. So it's an aggressive deck, but it does have some of those mid-rangey elements as well. Anyways, if you guys like what I'm doing here, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We are still on the road to 100 subscribers, so thanks to everybody who has subscribed so far. It means a lot. But without any more dilly-dallying, let's just talk about cards. First set of cards I want to get out of the way are going to be your ramp cards. These are the cards that are going to get you to the late game, and pretty much for any deck that you play, you'll see these cards for the volume ones, and that's going to be the card that's in this case for Yellow Bleach, it's going to be Berenice Gabrielli and Najakoop. Why is it like, I think his name is like Najakoop, but it's very hard to pronounce. But anyways, so Najakoop is basically going to be your, when active, you get 2 energy. Usually always going to be online after you play him because he's just going to be restanding, and then he will be, they're usually never resting him for anything. So it always is going to be online. And then Berenice Gabrielli is that one where you can tap it to get 2 energy, but once you go to your attack phase, it gets sacrificed or sent to the sideline. So these 2 are basically going to be your bread and butter for ramp for pretty much any deck like that type of effect. But for our Yellow Bleach, they are both Sternritters, and they are both going to be getting us to that critical mass of 5. 5 is where we want to be to see our first boss monster, and then once we hit 6, we're up to the second one. But Berenice is usually used for the early game, while Najakoop is there around for the late game. Only running 3 Najakoop right now in my list, just because as good as it is, you usually want to see it early. When it comes to the late game, it's kind of a dead card because you have to wait a turn, so you don't want to be seeing it come late game. But 3 I think is good enough to have it being seen. The next card we're going to talk about is going to be a 2 energy Robert Accutrone. So basically he is just a body that is, not only does he provide 2 energy to our energy line, he also is able to draw us a card if our opponent has a big body on board, 4K to be specific. Very good card, just being able to not only replace himself, but also help our strategy by providing 2 energy. The other card we're going to be looking at is something that is very key to the strategy, because as you're going to see, like I said, this is a very aggressive deck. So you want to be putting out big bodies and going straight to face. If you're familiar with One Piece, it's very similar to how Purple plays with like Kaido or like any of those ramp strategies. You're looking to go big, and one of our big bodies at that 5 energy threshold is Baz B. So he's a 5/1 4K, where you can discard a card once per turn, and then he gains either when your opponent blocks, you can draw a card, or he deals 2 damage. Now, losing a card for this effect might seem like a downside, but as you will see, as I mentioned some other cards later in the video, you'll see how that is a benefit. But Bazby is one of our main sources of aggro, just putting a lot of pressure, being able to get 2 damage, and he just generates insane value just by being able to replenish our hand with that draw. because no one's going to want to take 2 damage over the course of like 3 turns, right? So people are going to want to block it out with those low cost blockers or those low power blockers, and then you're getting to fill your hand to seeing more pieces that you can use to deal with their blockers and get in for that 2 damage. The next card I want to talk about is Royd Lloyd. So, as you will see here in a little bit here, we have a lot of raid targets. To be specific, I believe we have 8. So some of the times we're not going to see the other base 8 raid targets, so we need a little bit more. And Royd Lloyd has a really cool effect of being able to count as any raid target. So for our big boss monsters, we can raid over a Royd Lloyd and being able to just get that raid effect online. And speaking of the raid targets, let's talk about both of them, and basically the meat and the bones of the deck. The 2 raid targets that we have are Jugram and Yhwach. So Jugram is, we have the 0-1 version, just a vanilla, nothing too special, provides 1 energy. But let's talk about his raid. His raid has a lot of stuff on it, so let's take a look at it. So his raid is a 5-1, all right? It is 4k power, and then on raid, right, if your opponent has more cards in their hand than you get to force them to discard 1 card. So as you see with the Basby and the Jugram, that's how we're getting that synergy of having less cards in our hand, so we force our opponent to discard. But the key thing is, at the end of turn, if our opponent has activated a trigger effect, we get to draw 2 trash ones. So that's how we fill our hand back up. A lot of the times in these TCGs, card advantage is huge, and Jugram is that way of getting that card advantage, especially because, like I said, this is a very aggressive deck. You want to be swinging. So think about it having that Basby effect, being able to draw a card, and then let's say you hit a trigger, and then you can trigger that Jugram as well at end of turn. That is 3 cards you are drawing into for 1 turn, which is just very, very good. It's triggered naturally being a raid trigger, so you can also do some cheeky shenanigans if, like, let's say, for example, you hit that in life, boom, you raid, you force them to discard a card, and you kind of mess with their turn as well. And then let's talk about the big guy, the man of the hour, Yhwach. So we are actually running 3 Yhwaches in the deck. We are running the 0-1, just a vanilla, similar to the Jugram. We're running the 3-1, which allows you to look at the top part of your opponent's deck, and you can either leave it on top or you can force them to sideline it, which is very good in a lot of matchups, especially against like Bomberman, for example, where they very much rely on top deck manipulation. You can mess with that. For example, let's say you're playing against purple Bleach, you can use this to like put certain cards that they would be looking for, like your AP resetters and things like that, to the sideline so they can't get those effects. Very good card. Plus it also provides us 2 energy as well, so it's just overall a really, really solid card. And then we gotta talk about the big guy, the man of the hour, the guy that we built this deck for, Yhwach. So this is a 6-1 Yhwach. He has the Sternritter typing, and he has raid. And it says, during your turn, if 2 or more characters have been sidelined this turn, this character gains plus 1000 PP and 2 damage. And then when played, you can choose one of the following. You can choose up to 1 rated card on your opponent's front line and put the top rated card into their sideline. Or you can choose 1 character with 3000 or less PP on your opponent's side of the field and sideline it. Specifically the front line. And then naturally, being a raid target, it has raid. But the key thing I want to talk about with this card is that first turn, that during your turn effect. If 2 or more characters have been sidelined, this does not specify your opponent's characters. And as you're going to see with one of the cards that we run in this deck, that can actually come up really, really handy. Let's say, for example, you swing with your Yhwach, or you swing with, let's say, for example, you swing with whatever, right? And then they hit a special trigger. If they hit a special trigger and then remove one of your other bodies, Yhwach, he will always get 1 card off the board with his when played. If they hit a special trigger and get rid of something else, Yhwach's effect triggers now because two things got removed, right? So now you get that plus 1000 BP, plus you get that damage too, and now you're just, imagine having Yhwach, Baz B, and Jugram on board. You swing, you do 4 damage in a turn, right? And you're getting to draw because you're more than likely going to trigger. Just insane value. Yhwach is the boss monster. This is where you want to get to. You got to be running 4 of this in your deck, 100%, no doubt. And as for the when played, the moving the rated card from the top to the sideline does also count as well. So not only is it good for getting rid of those big raid targets, it also can just enable himself as well. So very good card, a very good boss monster in my opinion. So definitely have to look out for him. And then just to round out the deck list, we got to talk about our events. So the first one, pretty much if you're building any deck in Union Arena, you need to be running your special triggers and your final triggers. So the special trigger in this one that we choose is naturally Metalize. Metalize has a very interesting effect where so naturally as any special trigger, you choose one character with 3000 BP or less, you get to sideline it. But with this one specifically, if there is a rated card on your opponent's field or your Yhwach on your field, you get to choose 5000 BP or less instead. So pretty much getting rid of most things in the game currently. But the fact that it also triggers on rated cards is really, really good because a lot of the cards that are the boss monsters for this game at the moment are going to be raid targets. So being able to always trigger this on a raid target is just going to be insane. And then it has the trigger of basically just being able to sideline anything on the front line, classic stuff. But as you see, it is a 5-1, a little bit more expensive than other ones, but that is the main thing. That's why you run all these ramp tools just to get up to that threshold for sure. The other card that we also run as well is going to be our Silburn. So you remember how I was talking with Yhwach and saying that Yhwach needs to get rid of characters off board? Silburn is how we also do that as well. So Silburn has a very interesting effect and why we run so many Sternritters. So it is a 3-1 sight card that says when played, look at the top 3. You can reveal 1 Sternritter affinity card and add it to your hand. Put the remaining cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. Activate mains, so you rest it, and then sideline 1 character on your field, and then if you do, you can activate the sight's when played ability. So the reason why this is ran is naturally, as you can see, we get to sideline one of our characters. So it can be the back line or on the energy line as well. So let's say, for example, you have a Yhwach on board, you use the on-play effect, but you don't have another way to remove something. So if you use Silburn to remove one of your cards, let's say in your energy line, then Yhwach's effect is now online. So that's how you get Yhwach's effect. So with Yhwach's own on-play ability plus this, you will always have a way to turn your Yhwach on, making it a 5k damage too, which your opponent has to block for sure. And then you can just do your silly shenanigans and aggro as needed. Card is very good. I personally run it at 3 in my list. I've seen lists run it at 2, but I like it at 3 because I still want to see it. It still provides me 1 energy. The on-play is really nice, being able to dig a little bit more. One of the things you will see with this deck is that sometimes you really need to draw your pieces because it is very piece reliant on seeing your top end. And if you don't see your top end, some games can feel like non-games. And this really helps the consistency of the deck, just being able to search for the pieces that you need to see. So, very good card. I think it's immaculate. Run it at 3, and you'll be nice. And then the final card we got to talk about, and no surprise to anybody, it's going to be our AP reset. So, in this scenario, it is Quincy Vol Sternditch. I probably butchered that, but need to run your AP resetters. Not only are they AP resetters, basically getting you +1 AP, they also are your final triggers, which should just be maxing out because you never know when a final trigger might save you the game. But this is what I'm running. So here's the deck list, guys. So pretty standard ratios, nothing too surprising. You're basically min-maxing on a lot of cards. So the only card that you're not really running much of is, like I mentioned, you don't want to have too many Silburns because they can be quite bricky in the late game, and they only provide 1 energy, so you don't want to be seeing multiple. And the other one is the Najakoop, is just because as good as it is, it doesn't really do much for you in the late game, so you really just want to be seeing your big pieces and trying to push as much damage on board as possible. But that is it from me, guys. That is the deck list for Yellow Yhwach. Let me know if you guys have a different deck list for Yellow Yhwach, and what cards would you play and what cards wouldn't you play. I know some people have a varying deck list, so I would love to hear you guys' input and what you're looking forward to, or if you're going to give this deck a try. So I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Stay safe, take it easy, continue playing Union Arena, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.